This small diary is part of a scientific treasure trove. It is almost 200 years old and takes its readers back to Paris in the first half of the 19th century. It is thanks to William Barton that its contents and those of 8 other volumes are now available. He and his team are at work on thousands of pages of handwritten text, and most of it is written in ancient Greek. These are the thoughts and observations of an intellectual who has gone down in history as one of the leading experts of Greek in his time, but also as the author of forged texts. A man who tells us a lot about his time and the academic society of back then. He was 9 when the French Revolution began, 25 when Nelson won the Battle of Trafalgar, and 51 when Johann Wolfgang von Goethe died. Karl Benedikt Hase. He lived from 1780 to 1864 and described his everyday life in his diaries. When the classical philologist William Barton was looking into the use of ancient Greek as a secret language a few years ago, he came across the name Hase. He thus became aware of an exciting historical personality and was finally able to find 9 volumes of his daily records, which were thought to be lost.
Karl Benedikt Hase was a Franco-German Hellenist, that means a scholar of Greek, who was born in Thüringen at the end of the 18th century. He then moved as a young man to the capital of France, Paris, inspired, we think, by revolutionary motives. And there he slowly got involved in the academic culture and ended up becoming professor of modern Greek in the Parisian Academy.
And this is one aspect that makes his diaries, which are kept in the Goethe and Schiller-Archiv in Weimar, so interesting, for they provide insights into the professional and social life of an academic, a Hellenist in Paris in the first half of the 19th century.
Philhellenism at this time was both a cultural but also a political movement in the west of Europe of intellectuals and scholars, but also the man on the street, so to say, who wanted to support the Greek uprising against the Ottoman state. Hase was well connected in Philhellenic circles. There were many Greeks passing through the city who wanted access to documentation, who were looking for influence, funding. Hase was personally acquainted and actually friendly with a number of these people. Hase was also a member of the French Philhellenic Society.
Hase's notes comprise more than 2,400 pages of text. However, only a few people can read it. Hase wrote most of his diary in ancient Greek. For William Barton, this is what makes it so special and has brought the text to the heart of his research. The questions over why Hase wrote his personal diary in a language that was spoken in the time of Plato and Pythagoras is only one aspect, however.
The secret diaries of Karl Benedikt Hase are the biggest single corpus of ancient Greek text from the early 19th century that is yet known. And so access can provide important information about his methods of composition, his linguistic choices, his vocabulary and grammar, etc. Hase was an expert of modern Greek and Byzantine Greek literature. For me, the questions I would really urgently look for an answer is how the young Hase became particularly interested in these texts, what lectures he particularly attended, and what grasped him, what fascinated him so deeply about this later field of Greek literary text, and how did he understand the relationship of this scholarship to the classical roots of the language and literature.
Hase was what we would nowadays call a workaholic. He even worked at Christmas and on his birthday. However, he also used his energy for less honourable activities. He forged Byzantine texts.
Hase is famous, or rather infamous today perhaps, and best known among scholars as a forger of Byzantine texts. The most renowned of these is the so-called Toparcha Gothicus text, which Hase prepared for a Russian count who had written to him asking for information about his homeland at the beginning of the 19th century. The Toparcha Gothicus forgery then pretends to be an anonymous eyewitness account Hase prepared an edition of this text and sent it as part of a larger work to the Count in Russia, hoping to get some scholarly prestige, favour from the Russian noble, and also some money, we believe. And this forgery was uncovered in the late 20th century by prominent Byzantinist Ihor Shevchenko, and in the diary we're looking for further information, further clues about Hase's other forgeries, but also about his precise motivations and the results of this peculiar and well, not entirely ethical act.
Barton would like to shed new light on private and professional, but also social matters in the records. In addition to diaries, he is also examining other personal documents, such as Hase's letters. One aim is to make the text of the diaries and the information they contain accessible to the public. To do so, the handwritten records need to be digitized. This is where artificial intelligence comes into play, namely the Transcribus handwritten text recognition system developed in Innsbruck.
After training and learning and correction by scholars, the tool is able to produce a transcription itself. This reduces our input time considerably.
The AI has been trained on Hase's handwriting. In addition, there are the characteristics of the ancient Greek language.
There are all sorts of tachographic signs, so essentially special signatures, special characters used to shorten the words, and the model has to learn them as well and pick them up as well. When we're talking about transcribus outputs, we're mostly talking about the CER, character error rate. So that's the percentage of characters or words that have been identified erroneously. I'm trying to develop certain digital solutions and text processing pipelines to further enhance and improve the transcribus's output.
Another challenge is Hase's linguistic style, as he mixes different languages and sometimes invents his own terms. This not only poses challenges for the AI and its programming, but also makes it more complex to contextualize what Hase has written. Part of the work consists of verifying sites and other references using historical sources and describing them in registers.
What I find especially difficult is to recognize the realia he mentions. He uses different words for a cab, taxi, or fiacre, and he also mentions different restaurants and cafes, and it can be pretty hard to recognize the names since he put them in ancient Greek. So he mentioned he rushes to Clodaldon, for instance, and my part is to interpret what that means, and actually he meant Saint-Cloud.
The research and discoveries will be included in English abstracts of the daily entries.
So we have on the one hand the Greek text and then an English summary, and then small notes, tag notes on interesting moments, interesting people, interesting events in the diary. That's one part of our daily work. The second part is analysis of what's going on in the diary.
The work of William Barton and his team is funded by the FWF START programme. At the end of the 6-year project, a machine-readable, open-source version of the ancient Greek texts and English summaries, together with notes on important people, places and objects in the diary, will be available online. In addition, 3 monographs will be published, shedding light on Hase from a personal, linguistic and historical social perspective. This analytical work will also shed light on the broader cultural impact of Hase's work and its place in contemporary ideas about Greekness, past and present.